I need the money by tomorrow morning, my daughter Tiffany demanded, handing me what looked like legal documents for her husband Brad's $400,000 debt. And don't forget, cash only, Brad added with that arrogant smirk I had come to detest. I simply nodded. Of course. 6 hours later, I was at the international airport. When they arrived to pick up their money, they found only a locked door and a small package waiting. When they opened it, the truth hit them like lightning. Betrayal, consequence, justice. The story begins now. Please subscribe to William's Revenge Stories and write in the comments what time it is where you are watching this right now. The doorbell rang 3 times in a row, each ring more impatient than the last. I put down my vintage bourbon and the quarterly financial statements, already knowing who was pulling into my circular driveway. Through the study window, I could see their black SUV gleaming under the security lights. Tiffany only knocked like that when she wanted money. I walked through my limestone foyer, passing family photos that suddenly felt like relics from another life. Tiffany at 6, missing her front teeth at the Christmas pageant. Tiffany at 18, high school graduation in her blue dress. Tiffany at 27, her wedding day at the big downtown cathedral. Every image now seemed to mock my own blindness. There she was with that calculated smile, the one that hadn't reached her eyes in years. Brad loomed behind her, checking something on his phone with the intensity of a man watching horse race results or football bets. Neither looked particularly happy to be visiting the estate. "Dad!" Tiffany hugged me, lingering a moment too long. The hug felt rehearsed, as if she were making an emotional deposit for a later withdrawal. Brad walked right past me without even a greeting, his expensive cowboy boots clicking against the stone floor as he headed straight for my leather armchair. My armchair. I followed him into the living room, noticing how Tiffany nervously adjusted her designer bag, the $4,000 one I had bought her last Christmas. Brad had already spread documents over my hardwood coffee table as if he were leading a board meeting. Tiffany sat on the edge of the sofa, her fingers finding the pearl necklace I had given her for her 30th birthday. She always touched it when she was about to ask for something. "Can I get you two anything? Water? Scotch? Iced tea?" I suggested, though hospitality was the furthest thing from my mind. "Let's cut to the chase, William," Brad said without looking up from his papers. "We have a situation, not even the courtesy of Mr. Miller." I gripped my glass of bourbon tighter and counted backward from 10, an anger management technique that wasn't working much anymore. Tiffany's voice went high-pitched. Another sign. "Dad, you know we wouldn't come to you unless it was absolutely necessary. You always said family comes first, and we are family. What happened to the investment property?" I kept my tone neutral, though my jaw had started its familiar clenching. Brad finally looked up. His expression suggested I had asked about the Great Depression, market corrections, a temporary setback. But we aren't here for that. Tiffany's wedding ring, her grandmother's ring, spun nervously on her finger. It was her tell when she was lying. It had been since she was 12 and denied breaking my late wife's porcelain angel figurine. "The thing is," Tiffany started, then stopped and started again. "Brad has been working on this new project, an agricultural tech startup. Very promising. Revolutionary, really." "How much?" I interrupted. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked for 3 long seconds of silence. Brad's cologne, something expensive and overpowering, mixed with the oak and smoke notes of my bourbon. Tiffany's heel tapped a nervous rhythm on the stone floor. "It really isn't that much for someone with your assets," Brad said, leaning back in my armchair. The leather creaked under his weight, a sound that had always been mine alone until tonight. $400,000. We need it in our account by tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The migraine that always started behind my left eye in moments of stress began its familiar pulse. "Almost $500,000, said as casually as ordering a pizza. "That's it." I started and stopped. Memories arrived uninvited. Teaching Tiffany to ride a bike in the town square, her college graduation from State University, walking her down the aisle at that luxury hotel. Had that little girl ever existed, or had I imagined her? "Dad, we wouldn't ask if we had another choice." Tiffany's fingers moved from her necklace to wipe her eyes, though I noticed there were no actual tears. "The mortgage, the kids' schools. Do you know how expensive everything has gotten with inflation?" Yes, I knew. I paid those tuition fees directly. $15,000 per kid per semester at that private academy. The mortgage on their house in the gated community, the one where I had covered the down payment of $200,000, had been a one-time help 3 years ago. Brad stood up, walked to my bar without invitation, and poured himself 3 fingers of my 30-year-old scotch. We aren't dealing with bank people, William. These are serious people from Vegas. I would hate for this to affect your reputation at the country club or your Ford dealerships. The threat floated in the air like Brad's cologne, thick, overwhelming, and nauseating. My blood pressure spiked. The migraine exploded from behind my eye through my skull. The room spun slightly, and I grabbed the fireplace mantel to keep myself upright. "Dad, you look pale," Tiffany said, not with concern, but with calculation, as if she were measuring my weakness for maximum advantage. Then she said the words that changed everything. "If Mom were alive, she would be ashamed of how you are treating us." The words hung between us like a knife. Tiffany knew exactly what she was doing. Linda and I had divorced 8 years ago, but Tiffany still used her memory as a weapon when it suited her. It didn't matter that Linda was living happily in Florida with her new husband, a retired doctor. It didn't matter that she had warned me about Tiffany's manipulation during our Sunday calls. In Tiffany's version of history, Linda was a saint who would have opened her checkbook without asking questions. "Your mother," I said slowly, "would have told you to get jobs." Brad let out a short laugh from my bar, still holding my scotch as if he had earned it. "Jobs? I am an entrepreneur, William. I generate jobs. 3 failed companies in 4 years. A cryptocurrency disaster I had warned him about last Christmas. The consulting firm that never consulted anyone. The organic produce distributor that only lasted 6 months. I had funded them all, every single one, watching money disappear into Brad's delusions of grandeur. You missed little Louie's recital last month." Tiffany changed tactics, her voice shaking with manufactured pain. "And Marion's dance festival. But you have time for your quarterly reports." Those quarterly reports kept her children in private school, kept her SUV fueled, kept her address in the gated community respectable. But I didn't say that. Instead, I watched Tiffany's mascara run in 2 perfect streams. She had clearly practiced this performance. "Let me understand this." I let go of the fireplace mantel, straightening up despite the migraine. "You need $400,000 by tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. For what exactly?" Tiffany and Brad exchanged a look, the kind married couple's perfect after years of coordinated deceit. Brad put down my scotch and returned to the coffee table, shuffling papers with the unconscious rhythm of someone used to handling cards or chips. "Real estate opportunity," he said. "It is time sensitive. We cannot miss this window." "You just said you lost money on real estate." "That was different." Brad's knuckles turned white as he gripped one of the documents. "This is crypto. This is a sure thing." The slip was small but significant. Crypto, not real estate. The same mistake that cost them $200,000 8 months ago. My left hand started to shake. A new symptom in my 65th year. I shoved it in my pocket. Tiffany's phone buzzed. She looked at it, typed quickly, then put it face down. "Dad, we have supported you through so much. When you and Mom divorced, who stood by your side? When the economy crashed in 2020, who helped keep the dealerships running? You were in Cancun that entire summer," I reminded her, bragging about it daily on Instagram. "That isn't fair." I started listing, my voice steady despite the rising anger. The wedding, $600,000. The house down payment, $200,000. Brad's first company, $150,000. The second one, $100,000. The third. "That is ancient history," Brad interrupted, standing up, trying to use his height as an advantage. "We are talking about our future, the future of your grandchildren. The grandchildren whose tuition I paid directly to the school." Tiffany stood up too, grabbing her phone. The rehearsed childhood photo, the one of us at Six Flags when she was 7, suddenly appeared on the coffee table. She had brought it as a prop. "These are not just debts, William." Brad stepped closer, close enough for me to see the small scar above his left eyebrow. "They are obligations to serious people, with serious consequences. By tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. or things get complicated for everyone. Your reputation, the dealerships, that nice country club membership. You are threatening me in my own house." My voice dropped to barely a whisper. "We are being honest about reality," Tiffany said, but her voice faltered. She had never seen me this angry, this controlled. "Dad, please. We need this. Tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. That is non-negotiable." The room felt stifling despite the central air conditioning. My migraine throbbed with every heartbeat. Brad's cologne seemed to thicken the air. Tiffany's calculated tears had smeared her makeup into something almost theatrical. I looked at both of them. My daughter, who had become a stranger, and her husband, who had never pretended to be anything other than a parasite. The grandfather clock chimed 9 times. Outside, the gated community continued its quiet nightly routines, oblivious to the family destruction happening in my living room. Fine. The word came out flat. Exhausted. Tomorrow. Now get out. Tiffany mistook my exhaustion for surrender. She lunged forward, arms outstretched for another hug. I took a step back, letting her arms fall empty. Brad extended his hand to shake, squeezing too hard, establishing a dominance he had never earned. "We knew you would understand," Tiffany said, gathering her designer bag and her rehearsed photo. "Family first, right, Dad?" They left without another word, Brad's hand possessively on Tiffany's lower back, guiding her like a casino chip he had just won. I stood in the entryway, watching the distinct engine noise of their SUV fade down the street. The taillights disappeared as they turned onto the main avenue of the neighborhood. I waited exactly 5 minutes after their taillights faded before making the first call. Charles Hernandez answered on the second ring. Despite the late hour, 25 years of friendship and legal counsel meant he knew my patterns. I never called after 9 unless something was seriously wrong. They finally crossed the line, didn't they? His voice showed no surprise, only resignation. "Tomorrow at 11:00 a.m., I said. As if I were an ATM with a withdrawal limit they finally exceeded. "The house transfer papers are already filed, Charles," I said. I heard the rustle of papers on his end. "Only they don't know it yet. Remember? You insisted on keeping it in your name when you paid the down payment. What about Linda? She is waiting for your call. She says it was about time you stopped enabling them." I hung up and immediately went to my home office. The migraine had transformed from explosive pain to cold clarity. My laptop opened to a confirmation email from 3 weeks ago. "The Bahamas, April 5th to May 15th. Your reservation is confirmed." The retirement planning trip would now serve a different purpose. I called the airline, navigating the automated system with practical efficiency. The morning flight could be moved to 6:15 a.m. First class still available. 1 passenger. My safe opened with a combination I had never shared, not even with Tiffany. Inside, organized in labeled folders, lay 15 years of financial documentation. Each check, each bank transfer, each loan, the agreement Brad signed in December 2023, promising this would be the last request. Social media posts from Tiffany from the last year, printed and dated, showing her lavish lifestyle while pleading poverty. Shopping sprees at luxury malls, dinners at expensive restaurants, weekend trips to resorts. I found an old shipping box in the garage, ordinary and unimportant. Inside, I arranged 3 sets of documents with the precision of a lawyer. First, the deed to her house. Second, the complete history of loans. Nearly $1 million in 7 years, meticulously documented. Third, the legal notices Charles had prepared months ago, hoping we would never need them. At the bottom, I placed a USB drive containing the security footage from tonight. The cameras I had installed after a burglary 2 years ago had captured everything. Tiffany's rehearsed tears, Brad's threats, their coordinated manipulation. On top, I put a single note. "You wanted this by tomorrow. Here is what you are actually going to get." Packing took me 30 minutes. 2 suitcases efficiently filled with tropical weather clothes, essential documents, medications. My dealership manager, Alex, received a brief email. "Family emergency. You are in charge. Details to follow." I stood in the hallway looking at the family portrait we had taken 4 years ago at the park by the lake. Tiffany's smile seemed genuine then. Or maybe I just wanted to believe it was. I took the heavy frame off the wall, turned it around, and hung it back up. The blank canvas seemed more honest somehow. In my room, I took off my college class ring, the one Tiffany used to play with as a child, pretending she would wear it one day. It went into the box with everything else. The migraine had disappeared completely, replaced by something closer to anticipation. My phone showed 3 texts from Tiffany. I deleted them without reading. Brad had called twice, probably to reinforce the deadline for tomorrow. The voicemails could wait forever. I made one more call, this time to Linda in Florida. She answered immediately, as if she had been waiting by the phone. "William," Charles called me. "Are you really going to do it? I should have done this years ago. She is our daughter." Linda's voice carried sadness, not judgment. "But she is not the daughter we raised, is she?" "No. No, she isn't." We were silent for a moment. "The place in the Bahamas. Will you be safe there? It is a vacation. A long one. Alex can handle the dealerships. The lawyers can handle everything else. You know she will try to find you. Let her try. By the time she discovers what is really in that box, I will be drinking coffee on the beach, deciding if I will ever come back." We said goodbye without sentimentality. Linda understood what Tiffany had become, perhaps before I did. Mothers always know. At 11:30 p.m., I was in my dark kitchen drinking water and studying the refrigerator covered with my grandchildren's drawings, stick figures labeled Grandpa and me fishing. A crayon drawing of my dealership with Grandpa's job scribbled below. I carefully took down the fishing drawing, folded it, and put it in my wallet. The children were not responsible for their parents' decisions. I put the box on the porch table where they would be sure to see it. The doorbell camera would capture their reaction when they opened it at 11:30 a.m., expecting a check and finding instead the complete dismantling of their illusions. The alarm was set for 4:30 a.m., 6 hours until my new life began. 6.5 hours until theirs fell apart. The alarm cut through the darkness exactly at 4:30 a.m. No snooze button, no hesitation. I had trained myself during 30 years of morning dealership meetings to wake up instantly. Today that discipline served a different purpose. The coffee maker clicked on, already programmed the night before. A dark roast, the kind Tiffany always complained was too strong when she still visited for breakfast. The ceramic mug warmed my hands, an anniversary gift from her 10 years ago, when she still remembered those dates. Through the kitchen window, the city skyline was starting its slow awakening, office buildings lighting up floor by floor, while most of the city still slept. I moved through my house with deliberate precision, documenting every room like a detective at a crime scene. The master bedroom still had the portrait of Linda's father. Tiffany had always wanted it. She simply never asked nicely enough to receive it. Her childhood room, converted into an office long ago, still displayed her high school trophies. National debate champion. Academic excellence. The daughter I had raised versus the stranger who demanded money 12 hours ago. The pool area looked serene in the dawn light. I had taught Tiffany to swim there, her fearless 4-year-old splash. Last July, Brad had gotten drunk at our 4th of July celebration. He fell in fully clothed, and then blamed me for the pool's location. Even then, I had given him the check for his ruined designer watch. The car purred to life in the garage. I chose the sedan over the sports car. Brad had too many memories in that car. Too many assumptions about inheritance. The streets of the exclusive subdivision were empty, except for the garbage trucks starting their Saturday routes. I drove past Tiffany's subdivision. All the houses, dark, peaceful. They were sleeping, probably dreaming of ways to spend my money. The radio played classic rock. A familiar band filled the cabin. At the intersection of the main avenues I considered calling Linda, but decided against it. Charles would handle that conversation better than I could. The highway stretched ahead, almost empty. I passed 3 of my dealerships, their lots full of inventory that would soon be Alex's responsibility. The main location still had my photo in the lobby. That would have to change. Near downtown, I noticed Brad's favorite casino, where his gambling connections congregated, where this whole mess had really started. Construction on the main avenue forced a detour onto another street. The city where I had built my business for 3 decades looked different in the dawn darkness, like a set prepared for a play I would no longer be acting in. Charles's office occupied the 38th floor of the city tower. At 5:30 a.m., the building was mostly empty, except for security and the obsessively ambitious. Charles was waiting in the conference room with Martina, his paralegal, documents spread on the table with military precision, a box of donuts in the center, our tradition for important deals since 2001. "You look surprisingly well rested," Charles observed, sliding the power of attorney across the table. The first good night of sleep in months. I signed with my father's fountain pen, the one Tiffany didn't know existed. Limited scope, I see. Expires in 60 days. Property transfers and financial restructuring only. Can't have you selling my organs after all. My attempt at levity fell flat. We both knew this was necessary surgery, not revenge. Martina presented the property documentation with clinical efficiency. The interesting part, William, is the timing. The transfer was executed yesterday at 4:00 p.m. That was 3 hours before they arrived at your house. 3 hours before. Tiffany's house has been legally yours since she signed those papers in 2021. She never read the second page. The irony was perfect. While Tiffany drove to my house to demand money, she had already lost her biggest asset, the house she constantly bragged about on Instagram, the symbol of her success, had never been hers. The financial blockade, executed at midnight, joint accounts frozen, credit cards in your name suspended, the kids' tuition remains on auto-pay until December. We are not punishing them. Charles pulled out another folder thicker than the rest. The nuclear option. As we discussed. Inside are transcripts of Tiffany's texts, to her friends calling me a walking ATM and too pathetic to say no. The promissory note Brad signed in 2023, swearing this was the last time. The USB drive with the security footage from last night, their entire performance captured in high definition. The prenuptial agreement Brad signed. Charles continued. Includes a gambling addiction clause. Page 47, subsection 3. He doesn't know. His lawyer was too hungover to read that far. He arrived at the signing smelling like tequila at 2 p.m. Martina looked uncomfortable. Mr. Miller, this is remarkably thorough. 5 years of preparation, I replied. I just kept hoping I would never need it. Charles pulled out a shipping box identical to the one on my porch. Are you sure? If she doesn't find yours, this goes to her office on Monday along with this. He revealed photos. Brad at the casino last week. The timestamp clear. The losses visible on his face. Does Linda know? She has known for months. She helped document everything. She is just as tired of enabling Tiffany as you are. The property in the Bahamas. Purchased through the offshore entity. Completely shielded. Even if Tiffany gets ambitious with lawyers, she cannot touch it. I signed the last document, my hand shaking slightly over the dissolution of Tiffany's trust fund. 20 years of planning for her future dissolved with a single signature. Charles noticed the tremor. Scotch. He pointed to his desk drawer. Another tradition. No. I need a clear head for the flight. At 6:00 a.m. I stood up and shook Charles's hand. His grip conveyed understanding, sympathy, and determination. The elevator descended alone, each floor marking the distance from my previous life. The valet already had my sedan running. I handed him a $100 bill in an envelope. Alex Martinez will pick this up on Monday. The young man nodded, confused but professional. I drove toward the airport as the sun broke the horizon, painting the city skyline in gold. My phone buzzed. Tiffany calling earlier than expected. The last time I would hear that ringtone without choosing to answer. The highway stretched toward the airport as dawn painted the hills in copper and gold. The familiar route felt different this morning. Each landmark was a goodbye. The coffee shop was setting up at the intersection where I usually stop for breakfast. Not today. A news spot on the radio discussed the expansion plans of a local businessman. My own dealership group, ironically, though they would not be mine for much longer. Tiffany called 3 times in a row, then Brad once. Each ring felt like a countdown. 10 years ago, that sound would have made me answer immediately, worried that something had happened to the grandkids. Now I recognized it for what it was. The sound of entitlement demanding its due. Mental inventory as I merged onto the freeway. Alex had run Saturday operations for 5 years. He would manage fine. The property management company had their instructions and 6 months prepaid. The grandkids' tuition would continue until December. They shouldn't suffer for their parents' decisions. Everything else had ceased to be my responsibility at midnight. The south terminal of the airport emerged from the morning mist. The valet stand wasn't busy yet, just 2 attendants getting ready for the day's rush. Mike, who had parked my cars for 4 years, looked surprised. Early flights, Mr. Miller. Change of plans. I handed him the keys and an envelope. Alex Martinez will pick this up on Monday. His information is inside. Everything okay, sir? Better than it has been in years. I didn't look back at the car. That car had taken Tiffany to her wedding, Brad to countless casinos, me to countless ATM withdrawals. I would let Alex decide what to do with it. The first-class counter was empty, except for Helen, who had checked me in for dozens of business trips. The Bahamas today, Mr. Miller. I have you on the 6:15 to Miami, connecting to Nassau. That's right. Normal conversation masking a life-changing shift. 2 bags to check. That is all I need. As she handed back my passport, I pulled out a sealed envelope. I need a favor, Helen. Someone will come to pick this up later today. Tiffany Morales. She will be agitated. Helen's professionalism never wavered. Special instructions. Just verify her ID. There is a key inside for a storage unit. She will understand. Or she won't. Either way, the storage unit contained 20 years of her childhood belongings. I had kept things she never bothered to pick up. I would let her decide if the memories were worth more than the money. The expedited security line moved with Saturday morning efficiency. The usual agents recognized me. Where to today, Mr. Miller? Business or pleasure? Neither. Personal. I went through the scanner, belt off, shoes in the tray. The mundane ritual of modern travel felt surreal against the backdrop of the deliberate demolition of my life. I collected my belongings, each item returning to its designated pocket, except my phone, which remained off. The airport coffee shop at Gate 14 and muscle memory guided me to the counter. The barista, Diego, according to his name tag, smiled with morning enthusiasm. The usual. Medium Americano, no room. Make it a large today. Special occasion? You could say that. I sat at the gate, the coffee warming my hands just like my mug at home had done 2 hours ago. My phone showed its final stats before I turned it off forever. 7 missed calls from Tiffany, 3 from Brad, 12 text messages, 2 voicemails. The last text from Tiffany caught my eye. Dad, call me. I had weird dreams about money. I typed a reply. Dreams and reality are often different. I deleted it. I typed again. Check the porch. I deleted that too. Finally, I typed, ask Charles Hernandez. Then I deleted that too. Instead, I turned off the phone, removed the SIM card, and threw both in the nearest trash can. The burner phone in my pocket would activate in the Bahamas. First-class passengers for Flight 4203 to Miami, please begin boarding. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass with a practiced smile. The jet bridge stretched ahead, each step lighter than the last. The flight attendant welcomed me to seat 2A, window left. I accepted the offered champagne. Unusual for 6:00 a.m., perfect for this moment. Other passengers filed past. A honeymoon couple laughing and touching constantly reminded me of Linda and me 35 years ago. A business traveler typed frantically on his laptop, chasing some deadline that seemed monumentally important. That had been me once, building an empire for a daughter who only saw ATM codes. An older woman settled into 3C with knitting needles and blue yarn, just like Tiffany's grandmother used to do before the arthritis. Excuse me. A familiar voice made me freeze. Linda was in the aisle, designer carry-on in hand, looking exactly as composed as during our divorce proceedings. She settled into 2C across the aisle, close enough to talk, far enough to maintain the boundaries we had established a decade ago. Charles called. She said simply, thought you might need backup. It isn't your fight anymore. It hasn't been for 8 years, but she is still my daughter. Someone should be there when you land. I must have looked confused. I bought the villa next door 6 months ago. Charles is really thorough. He found it, negotiated the deal, handled everything. I have been planning this as long as you have, the captain's voice interrupted. Slight delay for our last passenger. My chest tightened. Tiffany? Had she figured it out early? Brad? The door opened, but it was just a rushed businessman apologizing as he squeezed toward economy. Did you tell her? I asked Linda. Tell her what? That her father finally stopped enabling her? That her husband is a parasite? That she became exactly what we swore she never would be? No, William. She is going to find out for herself today. Indeed, the door closed with pneumatic finality. 7:05 a.m. Push back. 7:15 a.m. Engines roaring to life. the acceleration pressing me back into leather that didn't smell like Brad's cologne or Tiffany's perfume. The city shrank below. The hills and lakes I had called home for 30 years became abstract geometry. Somewhere down there, Tiffany's alarm was going off. In 4 hours, she would arrive at my empty house. In 5 hours, she would find the box. In 6 hours, my previous life would be completely dismantled. The flight attendant appeared with breakfast menus. Business or pleasure? She asked with a smile. I considered the question. Neither. It is justice. Linda laughed. The first genuine laugh I had heard from her in years. That is the William I married. Welcome back. The coastline disappeared under the clouds. Exactly at 11:00 a.m. When Tiffany was expecting almost $500,000, I was having lunch over the Gulf of Mexico. Linda read beside me. Both finally free of the daughter we had loved and lost. Years before the money ran out. I learned what happened next the way I learned most things about Tiffany's life. Secondhand, through cameras and witnesses. A father watching his daughter's life like a documentary he couldn't turn off. Charles sent me the security footage 3 days later. I watched it on my laptop from the balcony in the Bahamas. The Pacific waves provided a strangely peaceful soundtrack to my daughter's collapse. The timestamp showed 11:00 a.m. exactly when the first text arrived. Your transaction has been completed. That was Charles confirming the house transfer had been recorded. At that precise moment, I was ordering seafood, and Tiffany was probably still sleeping off the hangover Brad had bought with my previous loan. Based on her Saturday routine, Charles had documented this too. Tiffany left her house at 10:45 a.m. The coffee shop charge at 11:02 confirmed it. A $6 latte on the credit card I had canceled at midnight. The decline wouldn't register until Monday, when the weekend authorizations processed. Her last purchase with my money. Mrs. Fernandez, my neighbor of 12 years, provided the next chapter. She had called Charles at 11:20 a.m., speaking in her precise English that years of teaching had perfected. Attorney Hernandez, they are here. Tiffany and the gambler. They do not know I am watching. The security footage resumed at 11:23. Tiffany's black SUV pulled into my driveway with the confidence of someone collecting their allowance. Brad checked his phone. Charles later confirmed he was tracking soccer scores, probably planning his next bet with my money. Tiffany applied lipstick in the mirror, the same red shade she had used to ask for her first car at 16, the down payment for her wedding at 27, the demand for $400,000 yesterday at 34. They walked to my door as if they owned it. Brad carried an empty designer briefcase, $2,000 retail. Bought with my money in January. Empty, waiting for cash that would never come. Tiffany rang the doorbell at 11:25:32. A normal ring, not the triple demanding press from yesterday. She waited exactly 10 seconds. I knew her patterns. Then she rang again. Longer this time. Brad cupped his hands against the side window, peering into my empty kitchen. His car isn't here. Tiffany said loud enough for Mrs. Fernandez to hear from her garden. So what? He has 4 cars. Brad's dismissive tone carried across the yard. The lights are on timers. Tiffany noticed what I had programmed weeks ago. Maybe he went to get cash from the bank. You said 11. We are barely past. They tried the door at 11:27. Tiffany's keys scraped against the lock, unable to find purchase. Charles's assistant had changed them at 7 a.m., 3 hours after I left for the airport. The confusion on Tiffany's face was almost worth the decades of manipulation. Brad saw the box at 11:28, just a shipping package on the porch table. Unimportant, except for Tiffany written in black marker on top. He opened it casually, probably expecting a late birthday gift or an apology present. The first document he pulled out was the deed to her house. His face changed like a time-lapse photograph of rotting fruit, from confusion to disbelief to horror in less than 3 seconds. He dropped it, and Tiffany snatched it before it hit the ground. What do you mean it is in his name? Tiffany's voice reached Mrs. Fernandez's patio. Tiffany pulled out the next spreadsheet. Each payment, each loan, each gift, meticulously documented. Total, nearly $1 million in 7 years, not including the house. Her hands shook as she reached the final line. The photographs came out next. Brad at the casino last week. The timestamp clear, his losses written on his face. Then the promissory note he had signed, swearing the December money was the last he would ask for. Tiffany's text messages to her friends printed and highlighted. Dad is too pathetic to say no, and he is going to cave. And my personal favorite, I deserve this money more than he does. At 11:33, Tiffany's phone buzzed. The first credit card declined. Then another, and another. The main card. The gold one. The department store card. All suspended, all in my name, all canceled at midnight while she slept. Brad tried to call someone at 11:35. His bookie, Charles discovered later, who informed him that credit extensions required collateral, not promises. Tiffany collapsed on my porch steps, her designer dress crumpling against the concrete I had renovated last summer. She found the USB drive at 11:36:22. She plugged it into her phone with trembling fingers. Her own voice echoed from the speaker, tiny but clear. Just take whatever he gives you. He is too pathetic to say no. Then Brad's voice. We aren't dealing with bank people, William. These are serious individuals. The prenuptial agreement surfaced last. Page 47 was highlighted in yellow. The gambling addiction clause circled in red. Immediate forfeiture of marital assets if gambling debts exceeded $50,000. Brad had passed that limit 3 years ago. Brad threw his briefcase against my front door at 11:38:17. The handle broke, the designer leather scattering across my porch. Tiffany's crying became audible on the recording. Not the pretty tears from yesterday, but raw, ugly sounds of someone realizing she had played herself. Mrs. Fernandez emerged at 11:39, her small frame holding her phone like a weapon. I am calling the police if you do not leave. This is my neighbor's house. This is my father's house, Tiffany screamed, mascara creating abstract art on her cheeks. Not anymore. Mr. Miller sent me the property transfer notice this morning. You are trespassing on private property. Brad ran to the car at 11:40, leaving Tiffany gathering scattered papers. Her fortune now just trash on my porch. She left some behind. The wind would take care of them. Brad peeled out, leaving tire marks on my driveway that the property manager would charge to his account. At 11:41, exactly. When Tiffany discovered her inheritance had evaporated, I was watching the ocean from a beachside restaurant in the Bahamas. The waiter had just asked me if I was celebrating an anniversary. No, I said. My freedom. Charles called on Monday with the epilogue. Tiffany returned Sunday morning with a locksmith who refused the job once he verified ownership. She tried to jump the fence until the security company responded. The police gave her a warning for trespassing. Brad never returned. Charles heard he had moved into his brother's apartment in another city. The divorce papers were already filed. 3 days later, sitting on my balcony with Linda reading beside me, Charles asked if I wanted to see the full footage. No, I said, watching the pelicans glide over the lagoon. The screams I had heard for 5 years were finally blessedly silent. Charles sent me the parking lot footage 3 days later. I watched it from my terrace in the Bahamas. Gentle waves in the background, while my daughter's life imploded on my laptop. The timestamp showed 7:00 p.m. on April 4th, exactly when I was having my first peaceful dinner in years. Her SUV screeched into the underground parking of Tiffany's condo building. Even without audio, Brad's body language screamed rage. He slammed the door so hard the car alarm triggered, its lights flashing like a distress signal no one would answer. Tiffany chased him to the elevator, clutching those documents like evidence in a murder trial, which in a way they were, evidence of the murder of her illusions. The building's elevator audio, which Charles's assistant somehow obtained, captured their conversation with devastating clarity. Tiffany's voice, shrill with betrayal. You said it was commercial real estate investment. Brad's denial came fast, desperate. The casino was just to relieve stress. Relieve stress? Relieve stress. The sound of papers hitting flesh, then the pleasant ding of the elevator, the doors closing on Tiffany's raw sobbing. By 7:30 p.m., Tiffany had started a live stream on social media that would become legendary among the social circles of the city. Charles's assistant grabbed screenshots of everything before Tiffany deleted it minutes later. There she was, mascara creating abstract art on her cheeks, wine glass shaking in her manicured hand. When someone you trust betrays you, she held the house deed toward the camera, Brad visible in the background throwing clothes into a suitcase. When your whole life is built on lies. The wine glass flew across the room, smashing against her wedding photo. End stream. 47 people watched Tiffany Morales, the social butterfly of the exclusive subdivision, self-destruct in real time. 3 were employees from my dealerships, who immediately forwarded the recording to Charles. Brad's mother called my office on Monday morning, her voicemail preserved in Charles's meticulous records. "Mr. Miller, Brad has been missing since Saturday night. Tiffany says you kidnapped him." A heavy pause with maternal desperation. "I know it sounds crazy, but do you know where my son is?" I didn't know, but I knew where he had been. Brad had spent those hours calling everyone he had ever known with money. Friends from the country club, college buddies, even his ex-girlfriend's father, each conversation shorter than the last, each rejection adding weight to his desperation. His mother heard him say, his voice broken, "It isn't just about money anymore. These people don't play." Between 8:30 and 10:00 p.m., Tiffany dove deep into internet legal advice. Her search history, visible because she had used my online shopping account to access the Wi-Fi, read like a map of denial. Can a father take back a gifted house? How to break power of attorney? Statute of limitations, financial gifts, emergency bankruptcy lawyers. Can casino debts affect wife? Cheap divorce lawyer, no retainer. The last search hurt more than expected, not because she wanted to divorce Brad. That was years overdue, but because she immediately went looking for someone else to fund him. Isabel, Tiffany's best friend from college, called Linda around 10:00 p.m. Tiffany had finally played the entire USB drive. Not just yesterday's recording. 5 years of family gatherings, birthday parties, and Christmas dinners, all secretly recorded. Tiffany's voice calling me a walking ATM on her 30th birthday. Brad joking about bleeding the old man dry at Christmas dinner. Tiffany coaching Brad on manipulation tactics before our anniversary dinner. The family toast, where they had mockingly thanked, "Good old Dad." The family bank. She played it 3 times, Isabel told Linda, as if she couldn't believe it was real. The cascade of credit cards began exactly at 10:17 p.m., each decline notification pinging in Charles's monitoring system. Main card declined, gold card suspended, store card invalid. Even her coffee shop card deactivated. A food delivery driver filed a complaint the next day. Tiffany had ordered $200 in sushi, planning to pay cash. There was no cash in the house. The driver threatened a small claims lawsuit, while Brad was already at a pawn shop with her jewelry. Tiffany's posts on social media between 11:00 p.m. and midnight became the city's gossip legend, each one deleted in minutes. But the screenshots spread like fire. Betrayed by blood. When your father chooses money over family. Does anyone know labor lawyers? Selling designer bags. Serious offers only. The comments she didn't expect arrived immediately. Her cousin, not furious. Just sitting, watching the dark windows as if they might suddenly light up with forgiveness. She stayed there for an hour, Mrs. Fernandez reported. When she finally left at 1:00 a.m., she looked different, as if she had aged 10 years in 10 hours. By midnight on April 4th, Tiffany had lost access to $2 million in assets, discovered $400,000 in hidden gambling debts, realized Brad had gambled away their savings, discovered she never owned her house, and learned her mother had known everything for months. Charles asked if I felt guilty about the recordings. I told him the only thing I regretted was not starting to record sooner. On Sunday morning, April 5th, Tiffany stood at the entrance of my office building for 2 hours. Security footage showed her pressing the intercom every few minutes, like a child repeatedly pressing the elevator button, hoping persistence would change reality. She called employees from the company directory she had stolen years ago. Alex blocked her after the 3rd call. Others simply didn't answer. By noon, she had moved to the international airport, the same terminal where I had dropped her off for college visits, where I had welcomed her back from her honeymoon. Now she was there, like a detective, desperately searching for clues of my escape. Airport security wouldn't provide passenger information. The airline required a court order. When she pleaded family emergency, they checked their system. The passenger specifically requested no contact, the agent informed her. Charles had the airport security video. Tiffany's face crumbling at those words. Her transport receipts that afternoon, the last trips before the account was cut off, mapped a path of desperation across the city. The country club. Membership revoked. Entry denied. The restaurant where we had celebrated every major deal. We haven't seen Mr. Miller lately. Even my barber shop on Main Street. Although it was closed on Sundays, she stood outside peering through the windows, as if strands of my hair could reveal my location. Monday, April 6th, became Tiffany's legal education day. 4 law firms, 4 identical consultations. The expression of each lawyer shifting from interest to sympathy as they reviewed the documents. "This is ironclad," the first one said. "You will need a retainer of $10,000. Dollars," the second said. "Do you have access to funds?" the third asked. The fourth just shook his head. The dealership confrontation at 1:00 p.m. hit employee social media. Tiffany stormed into the main downtown location, demanding answers from Alex. Alex Martinez, 6'3", ex-military, remained perfectly calm while she screamed about kidnapping, elder abuse, and theft. When she threw her coffee against the glass door, customers started recording. The brown stain would remain there for 3 days. Alex left it there on principle. Brad's mother's voicemail at 5:00 p.m. conveyed a mother's worst fears. "Mr. Miller, Brad has been missing since Saturday night. Tiffany says you kidnapped him. I know it is crazy, but do you know where my son is?" On Tuesday, April 7th, the real creditors arrived. Not bank representatives in discount suits, but 2 men in Italian leather who knocked politely and spoke quietly. They left a business card with only a phone number. No threats, no violence, just the weight of unspoken consequences. Tiffany called Brad 47 times. His phone had been off since Saturday. Her social media stories that afternoon, captured by her college friends, documented the pawn shop tour. Designer bags valued at $25,000 sold for $7,000. Jewelry valued at $40,000 sold for $12,000. 3 of Brad's abandoned watches valued at $30,000 sold for $10,000. She was still missing $390,000 of what they needed that night. Linda took Tiffany's call. She recorded it with legal permission, knowing that eventually I would need to hear it. "Mom, did you know?" Tiffany's voice sounded younger, almost childlike. "About Brad's gambling. For 6 months. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened?" Silence. "Then I need money." "I needed it too. During the divorce, you told me I should be independent." The call ended with Tiffany's sobs cut off by Linda's disconnection. On Wednesday, April 8th, Tiffany entered Charles's office wearing the same designer dress from her posts at the resort last week. The irony was not lost on Charles, who noted it in his report. The same conference room where I had signed the papers, the same chair where she had spread her lies. Charles showed her everything with clinical precision, the power of attorney that predated her emergency, the trail of the house deed, her signature from 2021, never having read past page 2, gift tax returns proving every dollar was a gift, not a loan, Brad's promissory note, his signature bold and undeniable. "He is my father." Tiffany's desperation cracked her voice. "He has to help me. Legally, he doesn't. What about support for the grandkids? Trusts in their names only. Untouchable until they are 18. This is elder abuse. He is 65. He is of sound mind, he left voluntarily." Charles accidentally left Brad's credit report visible on his tablet. Tiffany's eyes widened as she absorbed the full catastrophe. $400,000 in gambling debts, $180,000 in personal loans she never knew about, $90,000 in credit cards he had hidden. Even an attempted second mortgage on her house denied due to ownership issues. The final envelope slid across the mahogany table with a whispered promise. Mr. Miller authorized one last gift. Inside, a cashier's check for $10,000 and a note in my handwriting. "For a fresh start, Dad." Tiffany tore it in half. The pieces fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. She immediately asked if there was another one. There wasn't. There never would be. Meanwhile, I was learning local dances from the locals. "Wealthy William," they called me, laughing as I butchered the moves. My blood pressure had dropped 15 points. I slept 8 hours straight. I hadn't thought about Tiffany in 2 days until Linda mentioned her. On Wednesday night, Charles reported that Tiffany left his office at noon. Security footage showed her sitting in the lobby until the building closed at 9:00 p.m. The guard said she asked if I ever talked about her. "He lied," Charles said. She said thank you and left. That night in the Bahamas, I dreamed I was teaching Tiffany to ride a bike again. But this time, when I let go, she kept pedaling until she disappeared. The local newspaper article hit my feed on April 15th. Local businessman missing after financial scandal. Brad Miller, 36, hadn't been seen since April 6th. Wife filed missing person report. Police found no evidence of foul play. His car in the airport, long-term parking. Ticket to Argentina purchased but never used. The creditors returned to Tiffany's condo on April 16th. More insistent this time, according to the police report Tiffany filed, they left a photo from February. Brad at the casino. Chips scattered on the table, owing $500,000. Tiffany requested a restraining order. The judge asked about the money owed. Order denied. Her garage sale that weekend became neighborhood entertainment. The social media group post forwarded by Charles's investigator painted a portrait of decline. Moving sale. Everything must go. Furniture that once hosted charity galas. $150. Brad's custom golf clubs. $20. Wedding china. Luxury crystal. $40 for the set. Her wedding dress preserved in acid-free paper. No buyers at any price. A neighbor posted, "Sad. A year ago she hosted that charity gala here. Raised $40,000. By mid-April, Tiffany's job applications flooded the city's job market. 40 positions in 2 weeks tracked through professional networks. Interior design firms. Employment gap too long. Sales positions. Overqualified. Finally, Macy's hired her. The same store where she had spent thousands monthly. Starting salary, $15 an hour plus commission. The universe's sense of irony remained intact. On April 18th, an eviction notice appeared on her condo door. 3 months behind on the mortgage. Brad had handled the finances. Never mentioned the mounting debt. $2,200 monthly payment. $12,000 owed, plus late fees. Deadline May 18th. Pay or vacate. She discovered this after returning from her first day at the store, still wearing the employee tag she had once ignored on others. The divorce process on April 22nd read like a corporate dissolution. Abandonment cited as cause. Brad to be served. Location unknown. The judge allowed notification by publication in 3 newspapers. Cost. $500 Tiffany didn't have. She used her employee discount to buy a suit for court. The first clothes she had bought with earned money in 7 years. While Tiffany rebuilt herself from the ashes, I was building something new in the Bahamas. My days developed a rhythm I had forgotten existed. Sunrise with the tropical birds. Coffee watching the lagoon. Morning swims in water so clear I could see my feet. Lunch at Philip's Hut, where no one knew about dealerships or daughters. The local kids called me Professor William. I taught them English idioms in exchange for coastal phrases. Their parents invited me to dinners where no one mentioned money, investments, or opportunities. Real conversations about fishing, weather, and island legends. No one asked for anything except to pass the salt. Linda got into snorkeling, discovering colorful fish that made us both laugh. We hadn't laughed together since Tiffany turned 16 and started seeing us as resources instead of parents. It wasn't romantic between us. That died long ago. But it was peaceful, like survivors of the same shipwreck sharing a lifeboat. My transformation shocked the doctor in the Bahamas. Blood pressure, 30 points lower, 20 pounds lost without trying. Off 2 medications. What changed? He asked in accented English. Everything and nothing. I stopped funding other people's lives and started living mine. On April 28th, a gossip site published the news. Missing city businessman spotted in Argentina. Brad Miller working at a vineyard in Mendoza under a fake name. The photo showed him carrying crates, 15 pounds thinner, no wedding ring. Extradition unlikely for civil debts. Tiffany commented on the article with just 2 words. Good riddance. On April 30th, Tiffany finally used the key to the storage unit at the airport. Mike reported what she found. Every childhood item she had stored, photo albums she thought she had thrown away. Her grandmother's jewelry assumed lost in the divorce, a savings bond of $50,000 in her name, maturing in a year, and a note in my handwriting. For when you remember who you were before the money mattered. Dad. The email arrived on May 2nd, sent by Charles. Attorney Hernandez, please tell my father I found the storage unit. I understand now. I am sorry. I am working at Macy's. I am surviving. Maybe that is the lesson. Do not tell him. But is he happy? Tiffany, Charles asked if he should reply. May, sunset on the beach, Linda reading beside me. The same musician from my first night, playing nearby. The same place where Tiffany was discovering the box that changed everything. Tell her yes. I told Charles over the phone. Tell her I am happy, and tell her the bond was her mother's idea. Anything else? Tell her I will be here when she is ready to visit, but she pays for her own ticket. That night I watched the local families on the beach. 3 generations playing together. No one looking at phones. Everyone engaged in real conversation. Poor by my country's standards. Rich in every measure that mattered. Tiffany texted Charles. Thank you for telling me. Maybe Christmas if I save enough. The first time in 5 years she had mentioned saving for something. On May 10th, Philip's band played at the beach bar. They dedicated a song to Wealthy William. Not the classical piece this time, but a local folk song about a man who found treasure by giving it all away. Linda translated with tears in her eyes. It wasn't really about me. It was about all the expats there, all running from something, all finding something else. Charles called that night to say Tiffany had sold her SUV, bought an 8-year-old simple car, opened a savings account, posted on social media about the dignity of honest work. Should I keep monitoring her? He asked. No. The lesson was learned. The teaching is over. The learning is perhaps just beginning. The eviction notice had been on Tiffany's door since April 18th for May 15th. Charles told me she had exhausted all options, pleading with property management, offering partial payments, even trying to negotiate with the building owner. She never knew I had sold that property to an investment trust in January, anticipating this exact moment. Building security footage showed her renting the smallest moving truck available that Saturday morning. Loading it alone took her 10 hours. Mrs. Peterson, whom Tiffany had complained about for years regarding her noisy grandkids, offered help from her balcony. Tiffany's pride, even broken, wouldn't let her accept. She struggled with a leather sofa she had bought with my money, dragging it inch by inch to the truck, while neighbors watched from their windows. The storage unit she could afford held everything except clothes and her laptop. 1 month prepaid. The cheapest facility in the city. Pure irony, her unit was directly next to the one I had left her, the one with the bond. She walked past it daily, never realizing. On May 20th, the final communication from Brad arrived. A certified letter from Argentina, requiring signature. The mailman later provided an affidavit for Tiffany's divorce proceedings, describing how her hands shook as she signed. Inside, a page in Brad's handwriting. Tiffany, by the time you read this, I will have a new name and a new life. The men looking for me won't find me. Don't you try either. I regret your father's money, but you were the one who said he would never cut you off. We both gambled. We both lost. The prenup your dad made me sign means you get nothing from me anyway. Consider us even. Jerry, her store manager, called Charles concerned. Tiffany didn't show up for 3 days. When she returned, she had lost 10 pounds, her eyes sunken. The manager almost fired her. For the first time in Tiffany Morales' life, she begged, literally begged. She kept the job, promising perfect attendance going forward. May 30th, eviction day. Tiffany's new address, a studio above a taco bar in a working-class neighborhood, the same neighborhood she had called dangerous when visiting college friends. 350 square feet, a window AC unit that rattled like dice in a cup, shared laundry in a basement that smelled like mildew, $800 a month, cash only, no credit check. The second job started June 1st, night shift at a diner, 11:00 p.m. to 7 a.m., the same diner where she had made a scene 2 years ago, demanding the manager for cold coffee. Now she served drunk college students and exhausted hospital workers for $8 an hour, plus tips. Her new schedule became robotic. Wake up at 5:00 p.m., store from 6:00 p.m. to 10:00 p.m., sleep from 3:00 p.m. to 10:00 p.m. No. Sleep patterns shattered. Store until 10. Diner from 11 to 7. Repeat. Sundays off were spent doing laundry and meal prepping. Rice and beans. The cheapest chicken she could find. Linda visited on June 10th. She called me that night, her voice careful. Tiffany had hung an item on the water-stained wall of the studio, our photo from her college graduation. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by discount store basics. 30 pounds thinner, cheekbones sharp as accusations. Her conversation, according to Linda, went like this. I helped your father plan this. I know. Are you angry? I was. Now I am just too tired to be angry. The bond was my idea. An insurance policy for when you hit rock bottom. This is rock bottom. No. Rock bottom is when you stop blaming everyone else. Tiffany's admission came slowly, like pulling teeth. I was a terrible daughter. You were a spoiled daughter. Is there a difference? Terrible cannot be fixed. Spoiled can be overcome. The holiday weekend arrived with the usual summer heat. Tiffany worked a double at the store, time and a half for holiday pay. The diner was packed later with drunk partiers. She made $300 in tips in one night, the most cash she had touched since April. The diner's security camera captured her at 7:15 a.m. on July 15th, sitting in her simple car, counting tips, crying, not the manipulative tears I had seen so often, but something raw. Later she texted Charles that it was the first money she had truly earned. No manipulation, no last name, no expectations, just work. Her phone log showed a text written but never sent. Dad, I made $300 tonight completely alone. I know you won't see this. I know I was awful, but I wanted you to know I am starting to understand. She deleted it, but the phone company records remained. Meanwhile, in the Bahamas, the dry season had begun. I had started teaching English at the local school. Volunteer work. The kids called me Professor William. No one knew about my money. Linda painted terrible seascapes, selling them to tourists for $20, donating the proceeds to the school. We dined together most nights. Simple food, fish, fruit, garlic. Better than any meal at the country club. Charles sent his latest update. Tiffany is working 2 jobs, living in a studio, surviving. My reply. Stop monitoring. She needs to do this alone now. July 20th, midnight. Tiffany started another shift at the diner, the holiday crowd filtering out. She tied her apron, grabbed her order pad, approached a table of drunk business school students, the type Brad would have associated with. Welcome. What can I get you? A loud voice recognized her with shock. Tiffany? Tiffany Morales from the country club. She didn't flinch. That is me. Now, what can I get you? Charles told me later. That was the moment. Serving coffee to people she knew from her previous life. That Tiffany stopped being my daughter and started becoming herself. August had brought the full summer heat and Tiffany had found her rhythm. Department store customers started asking for her specifically. She had become genuinely helpful instead of critical. The night shift nurses at the diner tipped her extra because she remembered their coffee preferences without asking. No sugar for Helen, extra cream for Julia, decaf for Mary, who was pregnant. Her co-worker at the store told Charles that Tiffany had dropped from a size 12 to a size 6, not from diet, from work, walking miles daily on the store floors, carrying heavy trays all night, eating only what she could afford. Her cheekbones could cut glass, but her eyes had gained something they never had before. Awareness. Sundays followed a strict routine. Laundry at 6:00 a.m. when the machines were empty. Grocery shopping at local markets where produce cost half the price of the expensive stores. Meal prepping in her tiny kitchen with the one working burner. Then, unexpectedly, the library. She had started checking out books on financial literacy, taking notes in a notebook like a college student. September 10th, Tuesday. Tiffany checked her mail in the apartment building lobby. Usually she received credit card offers for people with good credit she no longer had. This time, a cream-colored envelope with no return address, postmarked from the Bahamas. She sat on the lobby steps. She couldn't wait to get to her apartment. 3 pages of my careful handwriting, the same handwriting that had signed birthday cards and checks for 34 years. Tiffany, I am writing this on a beach. A little girl here reminds me of you at 8, fearless, curious, demanding the world bend to her will. The difference is she is also grateful. I do not blame you for becoming who you became. I created you. Every time you cried, I wrote a check. Every time you demanded, I complied. I thought I was loving you. In reality, I was training you. Your mother says you are working 2 jobs now. Good work teaches what inheritance never can. That money represents time, effort, sacrifice. Every dollar you earn has a weight my gifts never had. I am not coming back as the man I was. That man was a checkbook with a heartbeat. But I might come back to meet the woman you are becoming. The storage key you found was your mother's insistence. She said you would need something to hold on to. The bond matures in April 2026. By then, you will have learned to live without it. But love without respect is just pity. Earn my respect, Tiffany. More importantly, earn your own. P.S. Your grandmother would be proud of you working at the diner. She was a waitress when she met Grandpa. You never knew that. I was too ashamed to tell you. Now I am ashamed I was ashamed. Tiffany carried that letter in her apron pocket the next week. Her coworker at the diner said she read it on breaks, crying in the bathroom. Not tears of anger, but something deeper. She started asking her coworkers about their families, their struggles, really listening to the answers. She called Linda about the grandmother revelation. Why did no one tell me about Grandma? You never asked about anyone's struggles, only their successes. What else don't I know? Everything that matters. The transformation showed in her performance review at the store. Tiffany has become our lead associate. Customers trust her. She relates to people saving for special purchases. She understands sacrifice now. They promoted her to department lead. $18 an hour. The first promotion she had earned instead of being given. October 20th, Tiffany replied after 5 drafts. Linda shared excerpts with me. Dad, I am writing this at 3:00 a.m. between jobs. My feet hurt, my back hurts. I have never been happier. Not champagne and shopping happy, happy that I earned this sandwich, happy that customers ask for me by name, happy that I paid my own rent. I was so angry when you left. How dare you abandon me? Now I understand you didn't abandon me. You freed me from myself, from what we had both let me become. Brad is gone. Good riddance. He was my mirror, reflecting my worst qualities. We were parasites feeding on each other's entitlement. When the host disappeared, we had nothing. I don't want your money anymore. Is that pride? I will need the bond to eventually get a better apartment, but I want it as seed money for the life I am building, not a rescue from the life I am living. Come back when you are ready. Not to save me, just to see me, the real me, the one buried under designer labels and demands. P.S. I kept one thing from my previous life, the photo of us at my graduation. You look so proud. I want to earn that look again. The letter reached me on October 15th. I read it on the beach while Linda looked over my shoulder. Does she understand? I asked Linda. Understanding it and living it are different things. Give her time. How much time? How long did it take you to really change? I am still changing. October 20th, 11:00 p.m. Tiffany starting her shift. A regular customer. A usual. Tonight he said something different. You look lighter, dear. Somehow unburdened. Tiffany smiled. A real smile. I am learning to carry my own weight instead of expecting others to carry it for me. He left a $20 tip on an $8 tab. The note said, "For your education fund. A fellow traveler." I decided that night to return in December. Not to rescue her. Not to test her. Just to witness who she was becoming when no one was paying her way. I landed at the city airport on December 15th, 2025. The same gate I had departed from in April. 8 months. Felt like 8 years. Linda stayed in the Bahamas. This is your journey to finish, she had said. The rental car was a modest sedan, not the luxury vehicle William Miller would have demanded. I drove past my thriving dealerships without me. Fine. I drove past Tiffany's old condo building, where a new family occupied her old balcony, their happiness unburdened by debt. I checked into a simple hotel, not the luxury one, part of my new life. Comfort without excess. I called Charles. I am here. Does she know? No. I want to see her natural life, not a performance. Department store. She is there until 6:00 p.m. At 4:00 p.m., I was at Macy's, watching from across the floor. Tiffany was kneeling next to an older woman, helping her adjust the fit of a shoe, patient, kind. The Tiffany I knew would have delegated that task to another associate. She had changed physically, thin but strong, moving with purpose instead of entitlement. Her uniform was simple but neat, hair in a ponytail, no more weekly salon visits. Her face without makeup was beautiful in a way I had never seen. Honest. At 5:30 p.m., I approached like any customer. "Excuse me, I am looking for comfortable walking shoes." She turned, froze. Her mouth opened. No words came out. Then quietly, "Dad." "Hello, Tiffany." Neither of us moved. 8 months of change suspended between us. Then she laughed. Not bitter or hysterical, just laughed. "You are shopping at the department store. You haven't bought your own clothes in 20 years. Things change." Yes, they change. She couldn't leave the floor, so I stayed as a customer. We spoke cautiously while she showed me shoes. "You look different," I said. "I am different. Poverty is an effective diet plan." "It isn't poverty. It is reality. The same thing when you are used to fantasy." She rang up the shoes, applying her employee discount without being asked. Pride in small gestures. "I get off at 6:00. Then the diner at 11:00. Can we have dinner between shifts? I can't afford to eat out. I cook." "Where do you live?" She hesitated, then gave her address. "It isn't what you are used to." "Neither am I." 6:30 p.m. I climbed the stairs to her studio. She had changed from her uniform to worn jeans and a t-shirt, both clean but clearly secondhand. The apartment was tiny but spotless. One chair, one stool. She gave me the chair. "It isn't much," she started. "It is yours. That makes it everything." On the wall, our graduation photo. On the counter, my letter on a small shelf. Financial planning books from the library. I cooked pasta with the groceries I had brought. Basic but fresh. She watched me cook something we hadn't done together since she was 10. "Mom says you are teaching in the Bahamas. Volunteer Spanish to local kids for free. The best things I have done lately have been free." We ate at her tiny table with plastic plates and mismatched forks. Better than any dinner at the country club. "I hated you," she said suddenly. "I know. I mean, I really hated you. I wanted you dead. I know. How could you leave me with nothing? How could I have left you with everything? I was killing you. We were killing both of us." "Yes." The silence settled. It was awkward. Necessary. At 9:00 p.m., she needed to get ready for the diner. I pulled out an envelope. "This is not a rescue. It is an investment." Inside, a check for $5,000 and a contract. "What is this? Business proposal. Do you work for me?" "Not at the dealerships. New project. Teaching financial literacy to young adults. You know the cost of not knowing. I am not qualified. You are uniquely qualified. You have been on both sides, rich without understanding, poor with an awakening." She read the contract carefully. "Fair salary, no special treatment. Raises based on performance. This isn't charity. This is business. If you fail, you are fired, daughter or not. And if I succeed, then you will have succeeded." At 10:30 p.m., she had to leave for the diner. She hugged me. The first real hug in years. No manipulation or performance. Connection. "I will call you tomorrow after reading the contract again. Read it 3 times. That is another lesson. I am learning. We both are." 1 month later, Tiffany accepted the position, but kept her weekends at the diner for 6 months. She wanted a backup plan. Smart. Her first financial literacy workshop had 12 attendees. A year later, she was speaking at universities. 2 years later, she was writing curriculum for school districts. She never touched the bond when it matured, instead, using it as a down payment for a house. The cash she used came from her own savings. Brad never returned. Rumor had it he married a wealthy widow in a wine town. The cycle repeating itself. Not our problem anymore. At Christmas dinner, 2026, Tiffany hosted in her new small apartment. Linda brought side dishes. I brought wine. We sat around her actual dining table. Tiffany raised her water glass. She was working that night. To family, to lessons learned, Linda added. To starting over, I finished. To wealth earned, not inherited. We clinked glasses, appropriate and cheap, perfect imperfection. The fortune I had spent my life building was nothing compared to the wealth in that small room. A daughter's respect earned, not inherited, and the knowledge that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the chance to save themselves. But our story didn't end that Christmas of 2026. Like all true transformations, this one continued to evolve, surprising us all with its depth. Tiffany's financial education program grew beyond our most ambitious expectations. By 2027, she had expanded from weekend workshops to a full curriculum. Universities began inviting her not just as a guest lecturer, but as an adjunct professor. Her first book, From Privilege to Purpose, A Guide to Real Financial Literacy, was published in 2028. The dedication made me cry. To my father, who taught me that love sometimes means letting go, and to my mother, who taught me it is never too late to start over. The book became a bestseller, not from expensive marketing, but from word of mouth. Readers connected with Tiffany's honesty about her mistakes. She didn't romanticize her fall or dramatize her recovery. She simply told the truth about what it costs to not understand money and what it costs to learn it. By 2029, Tiffany had established the Miller Foundation for Financial Education. Ironically, my money finally went to a good cause, funding free education for low-income families. But this time, Tiffany managed every dollar with the precision of someone who had learned its value through sweat. The grandkids, Louie and Marion, now teenagers, spent summers with us in the Bahamas. Not at a luxury resort, but in the simple house Linda and I had bought together. The kids learned Spanish from the locals. They fished from humble piers, and never knew their grandfather had once been wealthy, until they were old enough to ask questions. "Grandpa," Louie asked at 16, "why does Mom always check prices twice at the supermarket if you have car dealerships?" Tiffany and I exchanged a look across the dinner table. The moment had come. We told them the whole story that night. Not the softened version for kids, but the full truth, about loss, work, and finding dignity in earning your own way. Marion, always the most practical, asked, "So are we poor or rich?" "We are rich in the ways that matter," Tiffany answered, and smart enough not to forget it. The kids handled the story better than expected. In fact, they felt proud of their mother. Louis started his first job at 17, not because he needed the money, but because he wanted to understand what his mother had learned. Marion started a blog about finance for teens that became surprisingly popular. Charles visited me in the Bahamas in 2030. He had handled our family legally for so many years, he felt more like a brother than a lawyer. "Any regrets?" he asked one night, sitting on the pier watching the sunset. "Only that I didn't do it sooner," I replied without hesitation. "Tiffany is considering entering politics," he told me. "Financial education at a national level. She asked me to ask you what you thought." "What did you tell her?" "That her father taught her that true power comes from understanding the value of things, not from inheriting the ability to buy them." By 2031, Tiffany indeed entered politics, not as someone's privileged wife, but as a recognized expert in financial education. Her campaign for state Congress was funded mainly by small donations from people who had taken her classes. Her platform was simple: mandatory financial education in all public schools, stronger consumer protection against predatory loans, and transparency in college costs. She won by a wide margin. Linda and I attended her swearing-in. After the ceremony, Tiffany found me at the reception. "There is something I need to tell you," she said softly. "The bond I never used. The $50,000 that matured and I saved for my house down payment. What about it? I donated it all to the foundation. Every dollar. I wanted you to know." "Why?" "Because I finally understood the difference between being rich and being enriched. The money I earned enriched me. The money you gave me just made me rich. And rich without understanding is just another word for empty." That night, I called my financial advisor for the first time in 5 years. "George, I need you to do something for me. Anything, Mr. Miller. I want to establish an educational trust. Every dollar I earned in those dealerships, I want it to go to fund free financial education. In the country. But there are conditions," Tell me. Tiffany manages everything. Every dollar must be earned through work or merit. No scholarships given for last names or connections. Only for effort and real need. And no one can know it came from me until after my death. How much money are we talking about? Everything. The dealerships, the properties, the investments. Everything, except enough for Linda and me to live simply and comfortably until we die. George remained silent for a long moment. Mr. Miller, that is. Those are tens of millions of dollars. The money that should have been used to educate from the beginning instead of spoiling. The trust was established in secret. Tiffany never knew until after my death in 2034 that all her work had been funded by the man whose money she had once despised.